The Dukes of Dice are brought to you by Game Toppers, long sleepless nights, and listeners like you.
Welcome to the Duchy. It's time for another episode of the Dukes of Dice podcast, a proud member of the Dice Tower Network.
Coming to you from the Duchy in the Duke City, Albuquerque, New Mexico, and the Gateway City, St. Louis, Missouri, it's The Dukes of Dice, a podcast about board card and probably not role-playing games. Today, the Dukes review Khora from Iello. Then they take a look back at Sean's review of Unmatched Little Red Riding Hood versus Beowulf in their Dukes Double Take. And now, the Dukes of Dice.
Hey there, everybody! Wait a second. Are those the dulcet tones of Alex Goldsmith, Papa Duke Alex, that I hear?
I have something ready for this, and you ruined it. You ruined it, Sean. I had something prepared for this.
I didn't intend that, but I'll take it.
Do the normal thing.
I'm keeping it all in.
No, it's fine.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. This is Sean.
And Papa Alex.
Not Papa Duke Alex?
No, just Papa Alex.
No, Papa Duke Alex.
Now, look. I have two stories from this past week of names that have been far worse than either Papa Duke Alex or Papa Alex. So,
okay.
Are you prepared for these stories, or do we have bigger fish to fry?
Let's rush through. Let's rush through this opening business. This is episode 264, which we're calling Ruby Rising. Let's not take away any credit from BJ from Board Game Gumbo, who named this episode. I want to put attention on that episode name first. Fantastic name. Alex, my understanding is that your daughter's name is Ruby, is it not?
That's your understanding? Is this open to interpretation somehow? Yeah, that is. No, scholars disagree, but most think that her name is Ruby. Yes.
That's my understanding. It's also my understanding that we're talking about Khora, Rise of an Empire. So there's the rising. Also, Ruby is red, is a reddish hue, some would say, which is my understanding as well. And we're talking a little bit about Unmatched, that involves Little Red Riding Hood. So that all works perfectly. So just full credit to BJ. Great episode title. I love it. Fantastic. I think we were in total agreement on that. And I should also note that we get help naming all of our episodes from our Board Game Geek Guild, which is guild number 2008. You should definitely go check that out every other week because we ask you some questions. We ask you for some help. We're like, hey, tell us about these board games. Help us name this episode. We'll give you our runners-up at the end of the episode for the other awesome 5 title suggestions. Okay, BJ's had his time in the sun. Alex, anything to report?
Well, so yeah, but first, I did set up at the top of the show that there were 2 names that I had been called because in addition, headline, I had a baby. Her name's Ruby. She's very sweet. She's been a little bit more fussy this week than typical, but lovely baby. Sean, we just took her to the pediatrician for her 1-month appointment, even though it was technically on her 5-week-old day. She is, she, at her 1-week appointment, was 9th percentile in weight. She was born 5 pounds, 14 ounces. She had gained a little bit since then, but was about 9th percentile. She's now 17th percentile for weight. She's 7 pounds, 14 ounces, which is smaller than a lot of babies when they get born anyway. Her length is more like 34th percentile, so she's thin but long. Her head, Sean, is 63rd percentile for a baby at this stage. So she's got a big old noggin.
Yeah, that's a Goldsmith noggin right there.
That's a Goldsmith noggin. Big old head, teeny tiny skinny little body.
Good old bobblehead.
Yeah. Bobblehead, not the name I was called. Sean, I will give you 2 names that came up. One has nothing to do with...
As of now, we're still on the Dice Tower Network, so be careful.
Oh, yeah. That's fine. Both of these are appropriate, albeit silly. So I had to have eye surgery. Not had to. I did have eye surgery because I chose to.
Can I interrupt you? Let me interrupt you. Yeah. Right now, you have me looking at the lymph node on your neck. And that's all well and good, but can you just center yourself a little bit?
Look, man, I'm out of practice here. It's been a... Is that better?
No.
How about now?
So I can see now I've got like 2/3 of your beautiful face.
How about that?
There we go. Good job. You did it.
Typically, I've been off to the side. You just haven't noticed.
No, that's not true. It's not
No.
true.
Anyway, okay. So I got, because my left eye was terrible. My right eye had to be corrected because it was hit with a hockey puck. Keeping the story as short as possible, I had to wear glasses for the first time in 10 years. I was unable to wear glasses. They put in a contact in my right eye to make it worse so that I could wear glasses and be out of contacts ahead of surgery.
Oh.
You had to be out of contacts for a certain period of time before the procedure. An ICL procedure for any eye surgery nerds out there. Anyway, I put on glasses, and I was, not wearing a shirt. I know, Dice Tower appropriate. We'll stick there. But I looked in the mirror, and I was like, ooh, kind of got a Clark Kent vibe. I'm feeling myself. I'm feeling this. So I came downstairs, shirtless, glasses on. Abby's sitting there on the couch, and I come around the corner, and I say, "It's Hunky Daddy." To which Abby says, "I'm on speakerphone with my sister right now," and her sister heard me call myself very loudly announcing myself as Hunky Daddy. So that's a thing now.
You do project a lot with your voice. So
yes.
Just saying.
Yeah.
Let me just point out for continuity's sake.
Sure.
Clark Kent was a print reporter. You were a TV reporter.
Yes.
So not a good comparison.
Just close-ish in that journalism vein. The other one is a simpler story. I was very tired. I had taken a nap early, and I just got up and I had this loopy, manic, late night energy. Abby was still up on her shift. I had just gotten up, but I didn't feel like putting on clothes, so I was running around the house naked, but just with socks. And so I was.
Wait! Where were the socks?
On my feet.
Okay, I don't know if that's better or worse.
I don't know. But anyway, I was calling myself Naked Pasta Sock Boy. So.
Naked Pasta Sock Boy?
Yeah, because I went and ate some pasta.
Was it dry, uncooked pasta?
No. It was cooked. It was okay. Orzo salad with some feta cheese and some almonds in there and some spinach and a little bit of lemon juice. But yeah, anyway, there's a couple images for you, both of which involve some partial or full nudity, nearly full nudity. I'm surprised you haven't already pointed out that Naked Pasta Sock Boy is a contradiction.
Well, yeah, okay. There's that. So here's the thing. I think a lot of our listeners were looking forward to the triumphant return of Alex and to hear about his baby. And instead they get this nonsense. This absolute and total nonsense.
By the way, if you're a first-time listener, boy, this is not the right episode for you. Oh.
Or well, maybe. I feel like
I don't know.
This is slightly more interesting than most so far.
Fair. Okay, baby stories. Baby stories?
Alex, I'm sorry, but we've run out of time. We're going to have to move on with the rest of the show. Go ahead.
Well, it happened pretty suddenly. I mean, luckily enough, and thanks to Aaron and Suze for filling in while I was away. We had already lined up Aaron even before knowing exactly when the baby was going to be born. The due date was October 29th, but at Abby's doctor's appointment 2 days before that, her belly, basically they found low levels of amniotic fluid and said, nope, you're getting induced. And she said, what? I was going to go back and get my coffee and my apple that I left on my desk at work and enjoy those. Nope, sorry. You're here now. And buckle up because it's going to be a ride. So she called me. I drove in there. And boy, Sean, that was an experience. That was 33 hours of trying to get her body ready for labor, then trying to go into labor, then a scary moment when it looked like the baby wasn't tolerating labor too well. And eventually they said, we're getting her out the other way. So C-section it was. Abby was not so freaked out about that because she and her sister were both C-section babies. I was a little freaked out about that. There were these paranoid moments around, am I going to have to raise this baby by myself? What if something happens to them? And oh, God.
Well, this is dark.
Yeah, there were dark moments, man. During the period of time between when we knew we were having a C-section and the C-section, we sang ridiculous songs, including Jimmy Buffett's 5 O'Clock Somewhere, which, silly scene. We also, Sean, this was kind of the gaming incorporation. During this period, right before they told us, hey, it's C-section time, we were playing cribbage. But Abby had an epidural in. She couldn't really move. She wasn't in a great position to hold cards. So what I did was I dealt out one hand of cards to the left arm of the chair, one hand of cards to the other, and then held them up and had her pick, here are the two cards that go in the crib. Okay, what card do you want to play? We didn't keep score or anything. It was just kind of a silly way to pass the time. But yeah, Ruby came into this world shortly after we wrapped up a couple hands of cribbage. So Anyway,
well, maybe they'll put her a leg up when she learns cribbage.
that's right. It's in her blood. It's in her DNA.
Yeah.
So yeah, she came out, and I spent some time with her over on the warming table. She grabbed my hand. We knew kind of from her spunkiness and kind of attitude, okay, this is definitely a Ruby.
Wait, was there like a backup, or was there?
Yeah.
Like...
Oh yeah. Sorry. So I'll give. Oh yeah. So Ruby had been in the mix for a long time, and it's not after anything. Her middle name is Marie, so it's Ruby Marie. Marie's my mom's name, so I named in honor of my mom. Other names in the mix, Zoe was a possibility, but not. It kind of faded as time went on.
Zoe's Eliza's middle name. Chewie's middle name.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, didn't know that, and might have made it less of a contender. So.
Wait, what? How dare you, sir?
I don't want to know because I don't want to share names. No, that's got to be
no.
herself.
But you could just like her middle name is in honor of your mother. Then her first name is in honor of Chewie.
They're connected forever.
Let me interrupt real quick. So the decision to give her middle name as your mom's name. What's the thought process there as it relates to Abby's mom?
So, yes. No. These were conversations and questions that have been asked. In fact, that was my mom's first question, which was, why me and why not Dana? Dana is Abby's mom. And I don't know, some of it was Dana as a middle name doesn't work quite as well. Also, there's an element of my mom's last name is Matroni, and there was some element of Abby wanting to kind of honor her by having her have a part in the name, and Abby had a part in the name. I don't know. It's just how it worked out. No one, certainly Abby's mom did not seem to have hard feelings about it. We did consider Marina as sort of like a blended name, but that struck us as kind of silly. So we didn't go with Marina as a middle name.
Or Derry.
Yeah, that would have been even worse, arguably. We didn't go that route. The runner-up, the true runner-up was a name that came late into the conversation, Evelyn. Evelyn was the runner-up.
Okay.
But there was just something as we got closer to her being born, and this teeny tiny little spunky being just felt more like a Ruby than an Evelyn to us. So it certainly stuck. Though we call her Bean is sort of the nickname all the time just because of how tiny she is. So little Bean, and she's being a fussy bean and all that fun stuff. By all accounts, she is the world's chillest baby. By folks who have dealt with babies before, because I haven't. She is a very chill baby. She sleeps relatively well. She does great. She is smooth sailing, relatively speaking, as far as babies go. I will say, the one thing I didn't expect, and I talked about this in a Facebook post that I put up a few weeks back, but Abby got absolutely slammed with postpartum depression.
Yeah.
Immediately slammed. As soon as we got home, uncontrollable crying, lots of talk about, I think you and Ruby would be better off if I lived somewhere else. And it was dark times. Her mom flew into town. Eventually, she was able to get on some medication, and she's doing way, 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 way better now.
Awesome.
But since posting that, we've heard from a lot of folks that this is certainly not uncommon. Did Raquel go through postpartum at all?
She didn't. No. But yeah, no, it's very common, and it's a thing.
Yeah. So for folks who've heard Abby on the show before and kind of know how she is, yeah, she was very much not herself. And boy, that was the roughest part, was really trying to help get her back to being herself and being happy. And now she's bonded for life with the little one. They're it's so cute when she has her kind of wrapped up and close to her chest. But it was a bumpy road. It's been a bumpy road, but she's gotten a lot of help and support and love, and we're off to a good start. So Ruby's gaining weight. She's growing. She's healthy. No issues so far. So just waiting for that first smile. She's sort of given us some sleep smiles, but not quite that. We're right in that time where she's just about to start doing that. So I'm excited to see that for the first time.
So you mentioned sleepless nights.
Yes.
It's wild, right? You're just like, how is this real life? This is my life now? Is this going to be my life forever? Am I going to never sleep a full night again, ever again?
Was Chewie pretty rough on that front?
Yes, Chewie was really rough.
Yeah.
Super rough.
What Abby and I have done is we have a shift schedule. So Abby will go to sleep solidly from about 9 to about 2 a.m. And I will handle her from that period of time. And then she will get her when she wakes up anytime after 2. and that seems to do pretty well. She sleeps pretty well for 3-4 hour chunks at a time on a good night. Some nights it's been more like an hour or 2 hours, but she is generally when she cries, you know why she's crying. And she's not colicky. She doesn't cry for extended periods of time. So I say sleepless nights. That's actually been more just this week a little bit as she had a little stomach bug that she's pretty well through now. But for the most part, actually have gotten some sleep. But I think the overall shortened sleep, I've started every now and then will periodically feel the effects of it and need a nap and need some rest, and need to reset and regroup. So yeah, there's some element of that, and there's some element of who knows what the next light or next period, and you hear from people it gets easier, but you don't know it until it actually does get easier. So yeah, we're still in it. We're still in the thick of it. I would say five weeks and a day in, but things are better in a lot of ways than they had been. And we're lucky. My folks have gotten a place out here in St. Louis, so Grandma and Grandpa, or Mimi and G as they prefer to be called, are close at hand, close by, and everyone was here for Thanksgiving just now. So. Plenty of love and support for Ruby, so she's doing great.
Cool. Awesome.
Yeah. I also did something else, which is not listed on this during my time away, Sean.
Oh?
I made a purchase. I purchased Blood Bowl Season 2.
Oh, okay. The last
big
one.
Starter set. Yeah, the most recent starter set.
I was
No, not the video game.
Yeah, I was thinking the video game for some reason.
No, the physical.
Oh, cool.
And was dismayed when I opened it and realized I had to assemble stuff.
Oh, but they're like 3 pieces, aren't they? Isn't everything? Oh,
no,
pieces?
No. So here's the starter set for these, Sean, and it may be different from when you had a starter set.
No. I have this. I bought the same one. The one with the
referees and the free agents, and I don't think you did.
Oh, maybe not.
So here's what this set comes with, Sean. It comes with an entire Imperial nobility team.
Yeah.
It comes with a Black Orc team.
Yeah.
It comes with 2 referees and 4 or 5 free agents.
Yeah.
Some of whom are quite complicated.
Yeah, I have that.
There's the guy who's like holding a troll who's holding a ball.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So Sean, I have assembled that entire set.
Oh.
I have not painted him yet, but I've assembled the entire set. So we talked a lot before I left about what's this going to look like as far as Warhammer 40K Kill Team, and it has manifested in me buying a Blood Bowl set and building the whole dang thing. So
wow.
It didn't get me more into Kill Team or Warhammer 40K itself, but it did get me more into the miniature space. So
yeah,
mission sort of accomplished, I guess, from there.
Okay, awesome.
That's one of the big gaming things that's happened since then.
Wow. Okay. Very cool. Well, and I'll say this. So our buddy Jeremy, he's like, yeah, I'm either in for Kill Team or I'm in for Warcry, which is the fantasy one. And he's like, which one should I get? And I didn't see his text for like 5 days.
Oh no.
And then I finally saw it. And my answer is Warcry. Even though I have yet to play Warcry, I think I'm just going to like the game better. Even though I like sci-fi more than fantasy. He's like, well, I'm glad you responded when you did, because I was about to pull the trigger on Kill Team. Ooh. So, yeah, so that was good timing. But no, that's super cool. We've actually been talking about getting some Blood Bowl in. I'm supposed to paint Rory's orc team, which is fine, I guess. Not that I have a million other things to paint. But cool. No, that sounds awesome. That's super exciting.
I'm into it. So I may get another team to assemble as well, a Skaven team possibly, or
ooh.
Yeah, I'm not sure yet, but I'm in it.
The Skaven are wild. They are super. So the Skaven are these like rat people, and they're very fast. Some of them, there's these gutter runners that are like super, super fast, like almost twice as fast as like an average human. And they're super crazy. I love Skaven teams. They're a lot of fun.
But they're
my
flimsy.
buddy Anthony,
they're flimsy little ones.
They're super flimsy. My buddy Anthony, I built and painted a Skaven team for him back when we were doing our Blood Bowl League in Phoenix years ago. So yeah, they're a lot of fun. And I've played the Skaven. I haven't had a Skaven team, although I do have a Skaven army for Warhammer Fantasy Battle. But I did play a campaign or a season on one of the first Blood Bowl video game. So Skaven are fun. They're a lot of fun.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, this is a board game podcast, Sean Ramirez.
Yeah, it sure is, Alex. It sure is. So should we talk about board games or what?
Sure. You want to go first?
Thing? Yeah. So I mentioned the last episode with Suze, I had mentioned that Chewy and I had started playing more Pokemon. We had these basic decks. It's a starter Eevee deck and a starter Pikachu deck that we had played. And I was amazed at how well she was able to read and comprehend compared to when we tried to play a year ago. Like, just exponential difference. It was amazing. So we had fun. And I think I mentioned in the last episode that I'd picked up these slightly more advanced starter decks and that we were going to be playing them. I don't think we'd played them at the time. And that we were even planning to go to this other shop. It's called Tavern of Souls. We're going to go to one of their Pokemon play and trade days, which in theory are intended for younger people. More about that in a second. So I said, hey, do you want to go? And she was super excited. She's like, yeah, I totally want to go. And I said, okay, well, we need to practice. We need to play these brand new decks that we got. Everything's related to Warhammer now. One of the owners of the shop, they don't really do Warhammer, but he plays Warhammer, and he had a bunch of stuff that he was trying to get rid of because the shop was going to Las Vegas for the Magic Las Vegas Open. And he's like, I need cash. I just need cash. So I purchased a Be'lakor, which is the first Demon Prince of Chaos from him. And while I was there, that was my first time at the shop, I picked up the starter decks for me and Chewy. So I got, it's called a battle deck. It's a Blastoise battle deck. Do you know Blastoise, Alex?
Yes, of course. Oh yeah, I'm very Pokemon savvy.
Okay. So yeah, it's a Blastoise battle deck. And then we also got a League deck. And a League deck is like a whole level, head and shoulders above a battle deck. It's almost ready for like competitive tournament play, which is pretty interesting. This one is Inteleon. Do you know Inteleon?
That one I don't know.
He's a water Pokemon, and he's also a secret agent somehow. I don't understand how any of that works. But this one is based around, do you know anything about V Pokemon? Like the letter V?
Vaguely.
So there's regular Inteleons, which regular Inteleons are a stage 3 evolution to Drizzle, who's a stage 2 evolution, or stage 1 evolution, to Sobble. You know Sobble? Sobble and Drizzle.
That one I know better, and I'll say, in looking up Inteleon, it's like James Bond meets a gecko?
Yes. Yeah. So it goes Sobble, Drizzle, and then Inteleon. But then they have this whole other basic version that's called Inteleon V, and then he upgrades to Inteleon V Max, and the whole deck's based around that. So Chewy and I played 8 or 9, 10 games of Pokemon leading up to this play and trade Sunday. And Alex, I'm in love with Pokemon. I am in love with Pokemon. It is crazy. So when we played like a year ago or so, I remember as Chewy and I were learning, I also started playing online, just kind of get more into it. I wasn't super crazy about it. I think at that point, Tiger Mom, one of our listeners, had reached out to us, and she was like, hey, I can send you all these cards online. I was like, yeah, okay, that'd be cool. But I was not digging Pokemon that much. Like, it was fine, and I would totally have continued to play it for Chewy's sake if she enjoyed it. But now, fast forward a year, oh my God, it is so cool. So we're having a lot of fun with the decks. The Inteleon V League deck is way better than the Blastoise deck, way better. But that's fine. Chewy and I have played both. We've handed them both off. So we went in Sunday to Tavern of Souls, and there were about 10 people there. There were no kids, which is interesting because in the past, I've seen like Active Imagination, another shop in town. They have these Monday night Pokemon, or at least they used to. I don't know if they still do or not. These Monday night Pokemon nights, and they're just ton of kids. But for the most part, it was the owners of the store. There were a couple married couples and some other people.
Quick question in the middle of this
sure.
here. Have you ever played the video game?
No. I mean,
wow.
I've played Pokemon Go. So understand one thing. I'm of a generation that is either a little too old for Pokemon or a little too young to have kids that would that would have been in Pokemon, if that makes sense.
Yep.
Until now. So like I remember in high school, Pokemon had just come out. I was super deep into Magic, and I bought some Pokemon cards for my younger brother, Jordan. Jordan is about 12 years younger than me. And so I was like, hey, let's try and play this, whatever. He was kind of interested, but not really. And I never really played any Pokemon video games until Pokemon Go. So like I've had like very little exposure to Pokemon, like very, very little. Like I understand what it was, and I've seen some episodes of some of the cartoons and whatnot, but Pokemon was just never my thing by any stretch of the imagination. So we get there Sunday. This is last Sunday at the time of recording, and it's about noon. It starts at noon, but then the owner's like, yeah, no one shows up till 1:30. I'm like, okay, great. So Chewy and I play a couple games, and then Luis, who's one of the owners who I bought my Bellacore from, he's kind of watching our game. I'm like, hey, do you want to play Eliza, Chewy? And he's like, yeah, absolutely. So I sit next to her. So here's the big problem. The big problem is her hands are too small. So she can't really shuffle. She can't shuffle. And even like if you have to search your deck for something, like thumbing through, her hands are too small. So I just sit there and I'd shuffle for her. I'd say, what card do you want? I'd look through the deck. And so they played best of 3. And with a little bit of help, she beat him. She won the first one. He won the second. She won the third. But like we had played enough where she kind of knew what to do with this particular deck. It's very much a combo deck. You're basically doing everything you can to get Inteleon out, evolve him to Inteleon V, and then he just does all this, or VMAX, excuse me, and he does all this crazy damage to active Pokemon and then benched Pokemon, which are these like reserve Pokemon. And everyone, like she did really well. She did awesome. I was super happy with how well she did, just in terms of like her understanding, and there was a lot of mentoring from me and even from like Luis and other players that were there. Like they were all like very encouraging of her, because they're like, yeah, like you need new blood in Pokemon. You need new blood in any game or any hobby. And so she was like, she felt like a rock star that Sunday. And it was super cool. And it was super fun. And we're going back this Sunday. We were there for 5 hours.
Oh man.
We were there for 5 hours. And after she finished playing Luis, I said, you know what, let's look at some of their singles so we can upgrade the Blastoise deck to be at least on par with the Inteleon deck. And so she got to experience that, of us like just going through, just thumbing through singles. We bought like $20 worth of singles. Like we figured out which cards to add, which cards to take out. Like it's just a very like cool integral like part of like the CCG or TCG experience. The most amazing thing that on one hand, I wanted to apologize to her for. On the other hand, I thought it was awesome. So especially when I'm playing a CCG or any type of card game, when it's your turn, when I'm done, I do this thing like your go, your turn. And I do this thing where I outstretch my hand, palm up. And it's a very distinct maneuver that I do. And she did it. She did it to me. And I was like, did you just do that? She's like, yeah, why? I'm like, no, that's fine. That's fine. Like it was very cool. It was a really cool Sunday. Really enjoyed it. She's excited to go back. I did pick up they just released a new league deck, actually a couple new league decks. We picked up one of them. It's the Urshifu Rapid Strike V deck. And we played a couple games of Urshifu V Rapid Strike versus Inteleon V. It's been fun. I am shocked how much I'm enjoying Pokemon. Shocked.
I think at some point, do you have a Nintendo Switch?
Chewy does, yeah.
I think at some point you should try playing actual Pokemon.
Okay.
I actually think you'd like it a lot.
I'm totally open. I would not have been 6 months ago.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm totally open. I'm totally enjoying it.
Yeah. Cool. Super cool. Well, that's maybe me, maybe not with Pokemon, but something else. Some amount of years in the future, we'll see. I'll talk about the hit of Thanksgiving, which is a game called So Clover. It's done by the same company that did Just One, Repos Productions. I think that's right.
I believe so.
Yeah. So Clover is a party game where it's cooperative. You have a clover, a 4-leaf clover, and you'll get these 4 cards. The cards themselves have 4 words on them, one on each side of the card. And you'll randomly put them into position on the card, on your board, and then look and see there might be a combination of 2 words. There will be, sorry, I should say. It might be like, I had, for instance, yesterday, one of them I had was the word post and the word root. And similar to code names, I have to find some way of linking the words. You have to do this with the 2 words, and they're 2 completely random words. One of the more clever ones I saw, my cousin came up with, she had perfume and war. Sean, what would be a good word to tie perfume and war together?
Mustard.
Oh, interesting. Okay. She did gunpowder.
Okay.
Yours is a good one, too. It's kind of in that same vein, but...
Yeah. Like mustard gas.
Yeah. So that's the gist of it. Basically, you will write the 4 words on each, so 1 word on each side of the board, and then you'll pull the cards and add in a random card to the 4, shuffle them up, and then flip them over, and the other people at the table have to figure out what's the orientation. What were the cards what was the position of the cards that led to this combination of clues? And sometimes they can be really clever, like that one. Sometimes, like on my very first turn of the game, I had envelop, ENVELOP, and turtle. And I had just been waiting so long without coming up with anything that I just wrote down Pinocchio. No one got it, to be clear.
Okay.
Yeah.
Envelop and turtle?
Yeah, those are the 2 words.
What am I missing?
You have, what's the combination? What's the word that would join those?
Shell.
Yeah, no, right. That would be
Okay.
that would be an obvious one.
Yeah.
It didn't come to me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That's what I'm trying. I'm like, what?
So I had, okay, here's another one that I screwed up.
No, explain
Octopus.
Pinocchio. Explain Pinocchio.
Well, it was the idea of enveloping, something being enveloped was sort of, I imagined that the whale in Pinocchio that kind of envelops things. And then a turtle was also in the sea, so kind of like a whale. Look, it wasn't a good
terrible.
clue. Yeah,
That's terrible.
It wasn't good. I got a lot of guff for that one.
Wow.
Yeah. The other one I did that was bad was there was octopus and straw. What would a good clue for that be?
Tentacle, or suction cup, or like sucker.
So you can only do, okay, so to be clear, you can only do 1 word. Suction would have been fine.
Suction or sucker, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's what my brother came up with. In the moment, not thinking of any of this, I came up with scarecrow.
What the hell is your problem, man? You need to
Well,
get
look,
more sleep.
Look, the logic was the other clue kind of to the left of that one was gettable with the combination of things I had. And I thought that they knew straw would be one of the 2 words for scarecrow. It's just a matter of what's the other word, and there wasn't anything else, at least among my words, and luckily I didn't draw into anything that would have added additional confusion there. They got it. They got it on the first try. They got octopus, straw, scarecrow. But
So a scarecrow has 4 limbs, which is half the number of limbs of an octopus. Of course. That makes sense.
Well, but I will tell you, for the rest of that game, anytime someone couldn't come up with a good clue for their combo of words, scarecrow was the default. I don't know. I don't know what this is. So anyway, that's So Clover. A good family party game, a good filler. Doesn't take a ton of time. It's one of those where people can come and go, and it would not affect the game at all. It's one of those where there's a nominal scoring system, but no one cares. So that's So Clover. You can make it more difficult by adding in more cards. We didn't get to that point, but we probably would have if we played more rounds. Definitely a hit amongst the family. One to keep an eye out for.
Okay, interesting. All right, well, I'm going to talk about another game that I played on Extra Life.
Red Rising, right?
Red Cathedral. Red Cathedral. Yes. I posted this on Twitter and I said, oh, check out this awesome game of Red Rising that I'm playing. No, it's Red Cathedral. And then I was roasted on Twitter for a while, and it was fun. So this is from Devere, and it's designed by Chema Roman and Pedro Soto. This is a very dry Euro game, which that's fine. You are trying to competitively build and score these different spires of a cathedral, the Red Cathedral in Moscow. And so there are multiple towers, and there's a little onion dome on each of them. And you're going to each take a turn, and you're going to take one of three actions. Most actions, or most times, you're going to take the first action, which is getting resources from the main board, which I'll describe in a second. You can also, as a second action, claim the right to build a particular section of a tower. Or the third action is you can fulfill the requirements to build a tower section that you've previously claimed. All right. So getting resources on the board, it's a kind of an interesting rondel almost. There are these four different sections of the board, and there are a series of dice that are randomly rolled at the beginning of the game, 1 through 6. They're assigned to different sections, and basically you're able to pick up one of the dice, and you're going to then move it a number of sections equal to its pips. And where it winds up, there's some sort of action selection. Usually it's resource generation, and there's some other benefit, one of a couple benefits that you're able to choose from. So those are giving you the resources you're going to need. There's like gold and wood and different types of jewels that are needed. So there's that. But like I said, it's not just resource production. There are these other little incremental advantages, or there may be opportunities to convert resources to points. I should also mention, before I forget, that there are sort of two types of points. So there's this general, and I completely forget the terminology, but there's this general point track where as you go up a certain number of points, maybe it's 5, maybe it's 6, it's different in different situations, I believe. You're gonna reach these thresholds that are the actual points that you're scoring. You're also able to drop down a threshold to get some money. So it's kind of like what is the Vital Lacerda game where you can drop down the Gallerist? You could drop down in the Gallerist a certain amount of points to get money, something like that. So that's kind of interesting. All right. So at its heart, though, this is an area majority game where you are trying to have completed the most sections in each tower, which is going to give you a certain amount of points based on how tall each of the towers are. And there are some things that can add to your point total. So for example, if you build a section, or if anyone builds a section, someone else could even decorate that section, which counts as another point towards area majority for that particular player. So you're definitely looking out for that. When you go and claim a particular Red Cathedral Tower section, you have the option to clear certain spots on your board, which will give you either some sort of ongoing benefit throughout the game or some other opportunity to do something. Now, you can claim things without being able to pull things off your board to upgrade yourself, but it's not great if you do that. But it does cost you a decent amount of money to be able to do that. And then finally, the third action is you sending the resources to these sections that you've claimed. You don't have to fulfill them all in one go. So like I can have maybe 3 sections I've claimed, and then I send a wood to each of them. And that's fine. And it's only once though that a section has received all of the goods necessary for it that it's considered built. So, yeah, so we played this, I think it was just 3 players. I think it was me, Eugene, and Matt, and it was a really solid midweight Euro. I don't say that a lot. I enjoyed it. It's not a game that I'm going to rush out and buy, but if Eugene was like, hey, I've got Red Cathedral with me, you want to play it? Absolutely. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. The rondel was really interesting. It was super frustrating. There are some of the dice based on your player color that you can modify a little bit, but it always seemed to be the one that I wasn't allowed to is the one I needed to modify. It was a very tight game. It was very, very cutthroat. I mean, it's area majority, but I really liked it a lot. So and again, for loyal listeners, they'll know that I'm pretty stingy when it comes to midweight euros nowadays. So,
Okay. That's high praise.
Yeah, no, it was pretty decent. I liked it quite a bit. So that is Red Cathedral, not to be confused with Red Rising.
Okay. Very good.
Or Ruby Rising.
Or Ruby Rising. Yes.
Yeah.
So Sean, have you played this year's Spiel des Jahres winner?
I don't even remember what that is.
I'm about to tell you. It's a game called MicroMacro Crime City.
Oh, I totally could have just looked at the notes that are literally right in front of me.
Yeah, but you didn't. And now don't you feel like a fool? You fool?
Here, I'll fix this in post.
Oh.
No, Alex, I haven't played MicroMacro Crime City.
Oh, okay. Well, anyway, this is one of those games, Sean, where it was in the back of my head as I'd be curious to try this. It got a lot of praise. It's a Spiel winner. And I was over at Miniature Market over the holidays. My brother was in town, as well as my brother-in-law. And we went out to Miniature Market, and among my purchases was MicroMacro Crime City, along with its new standalone. It's not an expansion, but it's a standalone game kind of in the same universe. Sean, this is a rarity in that I think it's an odd combination when you have a game that has 5,500 ratings on BGG, an average score of a 7.8. Quite solid, and has a weight rating of 1.13.
Oh, wow.
So, and it's an unusual combination, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's deserving of that, and I'll explain why. So, MicroMacro Crime City, and I'll be careful as I talk through this to not go through spoilers. The components of the game are as follows. A giant map. Giant as in an entire board game table size map. With a bunch of little figures and buildings and other things. A magnifying glass and cards that represent different cases. There are 16 different cases that come in the base game, MicroMacro Crime City. One of them's a tutorial case, so there's 15 actual cases. The cases themselves are not replayable, but they're non-destructible. So unlike, say, an exit game, I can pass this along to someone else after I'm done with it, or let someone borrow it, and then they can have a jolly good time. And we'll go from there. How this works is this map has a bunch of people in it, but I'm trying to describe this well. It's a snapshot of the city, but it's as if there were multiple snapshots at the same time laid over each other. Okay. So in other words, if you took a snapshot of me throughout my day, one snapshot might be in my office, one snapshot might be downstairs, one snapshot might be over in Ruby's room. Imagine all of those laid over each other in the same image. So if you're walking down the street, there might be 3 different images of you going down the same street.
It's a time lapse.
It's time lapse, but it's a still image time lapse. It's multiple image. Well, time lapse is generally a video, I think.
Oh, well, maybe.
I don't know.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
But you're right on concept. It's a time lapse, but again, one still image. All overlaid on top of each other.
Sure.
How this works in the game, and I'm trying to think of, so on the cover of this, they have an example. Literally on the cover of the box, they have, I think this is brilliant marketing. They have an example case, they teach you how to play on the box of this game. All they say is, find out who killed the ice cream vendor. This is for the expansion.
Okay.
And you look on the map, and you look and look and look, and then eventually you see, oh, there's an ice cream vendor. There's a guy selling ice cream. There's a line of people waiting. And then you see near there, that same ice cream vendor walking out the side door of the store.
And
then you see a little bit further down, he's walking. And you see a little bit further down, he's walking. And then you might look way down, and you might see he's dead in an alley. And you might need to look a little ways back, and you'll notice, oh, there's a bunny hiding behind something with a knife. And then you see the bunny running away in maybe the next frame with this murdered ice cream vendor in an alley. All of this in one image, but hard to find. So it sort of is that Where's Waldo element of I have to kind of look through and find this. But it's that combination of deduction and seeking, close examination as a mechanic.
Okay.
And you solve cases and crimes that way. It might start off with, again, no spoilers, but there's a cat who owns a restaurant who's dead. It looks like food poisoning. What really happened? And you have to solve this out. And you'll go back and you'll find different threads. And it's hard to describe in much more detail than that, but it's fascinating. Especially playing the advanced variant where you just look at the initial card and try and come up with all of the answers of the case. Because how a case would typically unfold in the basic game is there's the one card that sets up the start of it, and then they'll say, great, where does this person live? Okay, who killed them? Where do they live? Why did they kill them? And you answer them by scenes on the map. It's brilliant visual storytelling. It is comic, dark, engaging, and well worth your time. Well worth your time.
Would I like it?
I think you would. I would recommend only playing the advanced variant. I would say that probably the more advanced cases. So Abby and I have played through about half the cases and played through some of the 4-star cases. They can take a little bit of time to unpack and untangle. They can take a little bit of time to unpack and untangle and figure out what's going on. So it's not usually an immediate, oh, it's this, and then it's this thing. There's often other threads or different things that make things difficult. And we haven't even played the most difficult cases just yet. Now, I will say, they mentioned that some of these cases are family-friendly. Some of them are sort of family-friendly, and some of them are explicit and not family-friendly.
Oh, my.
I would tell you that I would not recommend this as a family game. It is listed in that category, and it is certainly simple enough mechanically to where I think Chewy could get it. But, I mean, there are just random naked people. There's someone getting like chloroformed in an alley. I don't know how it's part of a case, but there's just a picture of someone getting chloroformed in an alley. There's crime and affairs and all sorts of other random things that I think probably wouldn't be super appropriate for kids.
Sure.
But man, it's fun to solve. So we have both the base game, and then we have again the standalone new set of cases, new map, Full House, MicroMacro Full House, both which has gotten even higher scores than the original MicroMacro. I think this is well worthy of the Spiel win. I don't remember what it was even nominated against, but it feels fresh. It feels like a fresh and interesting game. And maybe you'd like it, maybe you wouldn't, but I think there's a greater likelihood you'd like it than dislike it.
Okay.
So that's MicroMacro Crime City. Check it out if you haven't already. It's starting to become more available in stores. I think it had not been well in stock for quite some time. There you go.
There we go.
There you go. Sorry, a little rusty. Well, that's those are games we've played, as well as some talk about my baby. After the break, our review of Khora. Well, Sean, the Game Toppers 3.0 Kickstarter is in the books, and thanks to a whole bunch of backers, Game Toppers had a heck of a Kickstarter campaign, more than $800,000 raised to get more Game Toppers, new features, all sorts of fun stuff headed folks' way.
Wait, did you say 800,000?
I did say that amount. Yes.
Oh my goodness. That's a ton of money.
Sean, did you make it in time? Are you part of that group?
Wait, it's over? It's over? Like over?
No, it's done. I'm sorry you missed your window. But the good news, Sean, is that if you keep an eye on the Game Toppers LLC website, the late pledge manager should be open in the near future. Take a look there, and you can still get in on all the fun, get the newest features, get yourself a Watson, or get yourself, I don't know, whatever you want. Awesome game mats, rails, something cool to really take your gaming experience to the next level without getting a fully dedicated gaming table, which is exactly what Game Toppers is all about. Check them out, GameToppersLLC.com, because if it ain't a showstopper, it ain't a Game Topper. It's a game Sean termed one of the best new games he's played in a long, long time. Was that as a result of some extra life late night sleepiness? Or is that a legitimate thought on Khora, Rise of an Empire? We'll tell you.
All right, well, Khora, Rise of an Empire, this is published by Iello. In fact, it's in their, I believe, expert line of games, for whatever that's worth. It's designed by the Headquarters Simulation Game Club. What an odd name to name a child. Art by David Chapoulet and Jocelyn Jacques Millet. I don't know. So yeah, this is interesting because Iello is kind of known for mostly lighter games. And this is, I would say, heavier for a Iello game. Expert, what does that mean? I mean, I think it's relative to the other types of games they put out, but it's certainly not a medium heavy game. I wouldn't call it medium heavy. You wouldn't call it, would you?
No, I wouldn't call it medium heavy.
Okay. So this is something where we might call it a spreadsheet game, and that's not always a great description. I think that's just sort of a term that I think of and I use whenever there's just a bunch of tracks and you're moving up a bunch of tracks. You're moving up tracks on your player board. You're moving up tracks on the main board. And for whatever reason, I tend to like that. And this is kind of a dry game in a lot of ways. At least I think so. I think you probably agree. You're shaking your head yes.
Oh, yeah, I 100% agree.
Okay. So in Khora, Rise of an Empire, you are taking on the role of a Greek city-state in classical Greece. It's played over 9 rounds. In each of those rounds, there is an event that you will learn about at the start of the round, and then you'll wind up resolving at the end of the round. During most turns of the game, you're going to wind up taking 2 actions, although there's something you can do to unlock a third action. And when I say unlock, I mean you're actually unlocking a dice, because in some ways, the actions that you choose are controlled by the dice that you roll. So you start with 2 dice. These are regular D6. In almost every situation, it's better to roll higher. Generally speaking, there are 7 actions, 6 actions, 7 actions.
6.
There are 6
7,
actions.
no, 7, because there's a 0
7.
action.
There's a 0 action. There we go. I'm like, wait, there's 7, but there's no 7 on a die. Yeah. So there are these 7 actions. And generally speaking, and by the way, they're all numbered 0 to 6. Generally speaking, the higher number actions are more powerful. And it's all dependent on what you're doing, what your strategy is, tactically, what's happening that particular turn. But generally speaking, being able to do a 6 action is more valuable than a 0 action. Again, relatively speaking. So it's very much how you roll is very important. But here's the flip side, and something that I think is underlooked is the lower that you roll, the lower that your combined dice roll is, the sooner you get to act in a particular, when you're resolving an action. And really that only makes a big difference in the military action. And really that only makes it a big difference in a higher player count game. So this game plays 1 to 4. So we'll kind of come back to that. So at the start of a round, you're gonna see what event is coming up. You're then going to get some drachmae for your tax level. Almost everyone starts off at 0 tax, but you can take actions throughout the game that will increase one of those tracks. And then every round you're getting more and more drachmae to be able to use. Then you're going to roll your 2 or your 3 dice. And based on those dice rolls, you're going to pick, of the 7 actions, the 2 or the 3 that you're going to choose to execute. And you're all picking this simultaneously. You're going to put them face down and then reveal them. So as I'm looking, I have this hand. They're really these little placard. They're not cards. They're cardboard, because you don't want to get them confused with some of the upgrades, the politics cards. So you're going to pick from those. You're going to put them face down. Now, here's the thing. You have to play a card, an action that is assigned to a die that is of an equal or lesser value of that die. If you can't do that, then you can't take that particular action. Now, there is a citizen track that you can use, and you can basically spend these citizens once you reveal your actions. 1 citizen to equal 1 pip difference between your die and the action number. So there is a mitigation there that can occur. And I'm sure we're going to talk about this in more detail. So you reveal your actions. Everyone pays the necessary citizens based on that comparison. And then you're going to start executing actions, beginning with the 0 action, and then going all the way up to the 6 action. So each step gets resolved as it goes. Real quick, before I talk about the actions, let me talk about your player board, because there's also tracks on your player board. You have the economy track, you have the culture track, and you have the military track. And where these tracks are going to affect how your particular actions, or some of them anyway, will play out. Okay, so let's talk about the actions. You have first the 0 is the philosophy action. And what you get when you play this is you just get a philosophy token. Now, this is very much an underlooked action, because you're just like, oh, why would I do it? It's a 0, it's terrible. Well, no, philosophy action can get used in a number of different ways. It could be used to let you go up an additional track on your player board at the end of the turn. Generally, you're limited to going up one track per turn. This can give you multiple upgrades. You can also use it to get these certain tokens. There are red, blue, and green tokens that typically you'll get through Conquest, but you can also get these tokens, and these tokens are often prerequisites to play certain politics cards from your hand, or even to move up different steps on your development card, which is a different these different player powers. You have these prerequisites, and you have to have a certain number of tokens. The other, what's the third thing? What's the third thing? A philosophy token.
So citizens track. You can also use it to substitute a cost of knowledge tokens as a prerequisite on politics cards.
Yeah, the tokens. Yeah, the tokens.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, it can be 3 citizens, right? You can discard it for 3 citizens.
Yes.
In a pinch. So there's lots of interchanges here that make this a little bit flexible. So that is philosophy. The next action, level 1 action, is legislation. This is the primary way that you're going to get citizens. So you can immediately get 3 citizens, and then you're going to draw 2 cards from the politics deck, and you're going to keep one and put the other on the bottom of the main player politics deck. All right, we'll talk about those politics cards in action 5. So action number 2 is culture. This is going to let you score a number of points. By the way, this is a Euro game where you're trying to score victory points equal to your culture level. And that's, again, one of the 3 tracks on your player board. And you just score the points. That's it. And also underlooked, at least in my earlier games, there's some significant points to be scored there for sure. There's also the trade action, which is going to give you some drachmae, equal to your economy track. So the higher that economy track, the more money you're going to get. And then it also gives you the ability to purchase, I believe, for 5 drachmae, a permanent one of those green, blue, or red tokens.
Yeah, minor version of knowledge. Minor knowledge.
Right. Then we have the military track. Okay, or the military action. So first, this is going to increase the number of troops that you have, which is yet another track on the main player board. And it's going to increase it by a number equal to your military track on your own board. And then you're able to, quote unquote, explore, but really you're just conquering. There are these 3 different regions. There's the red region, the blue region, the green region. It's not a map. It's just 3 different areas. And for all of these tokens, there's what, 12 tokens each? 12 red, 12 blue,
something
12
in that ballpark. Yeah.
Somewhere in that ballpark. And so there's easier ones and there's harder ones. And there are these slight variations. But basically, it's going to say you need a certain troop level of X to be able to explore this location. And then once you explore it, you need to then sacrifice or lose Y number of troops. So there might be one that says you need level 3 and sacrifice 1. There's another one that says you need level 3, sacrifice 2. So there's a bit of a race element for which, like, obviously you want to sacrifice 1 troop, not 2 troops. But additionally, there are different rewards that you get for these different tokens. First off, these are tokens, these red, green, and blue knowledge tokens that you're getting that you need to do other stuff in the game. But they also might give you money. They might give you points. So lots of things to consider there. The next action is the politics action. So this is where you are taking one of the cards from your hand. You start the game with these 4 politics cards. And like through the legislation action, you're able to draw new cards. You're taking one of these and you're putting it into play. Now, there may be a cost. It may be a cost in knowledge tokens. You're never spending the knowledge tokens. They're just prerequisites you need. And there also may be a cost in money that you'll have to pay. That is something that you do spend. And these politics cards either have some sort of an immediate effect. Maybe they give you more money. Maybe they give you an immediate increase on the troops track. Or they may be endgame scoring conditions. Or they may be some game-breaking ongoing ability. There's one that says, hey, anytime you take a trade action, you're going to gain troops. Or during the tax phase, you're instead of just gaining the money, you're also going to gain something else. This is where there's a lot of asymmetry and where you're trying to build an engine and you're also trying to coordinate that engine with your particular city state, which has their own asymmetric abilities. All right, the last action, action 6, is development. So each of the city states have these 4 levels that they've achieved, and you start at level 1, and it gives you some sort of asymmetric bonus at the start of the game. And again, you're moving up. As you move up, you may get some sort of ongoing ability, some sort of immediate ability, or rather income, or you're going to get some sort of endgame scoring condition. And there's other cards and conditions that play off how well you've done on your particular city-state development board. At the end of a round, first you get the option to decide if you're going to advance in one of those 3 tracks on your board, the economy, the culture, or combat. And what's interesting is you're paying some amount of drachmae to do that. And as you go up, the cost to increase in each track goes up, but there's also bonuses when you pass through certain thresholds. It might be a bonus in points. It might be a bonus in citizens. It might be a bonus in increasing your taxation level. A whole lot of different stuff going on there. You're also then going to so you're going to resolve any of the events that have happened. Very many of the events focus on who has the most troops or who has the least troops. I think there's probably a if not a majority of the events, it's at least a plurality of them are related to troop level. And then finally, there are some achievements that you can get. The achievements are who has reached 10 points the first, or who has reached a certain culture level, or who has put 3 politics cards into play. And you're able, if you get this achievement first, you're able to get an increase in your taxation, or an increase in your glory track. And I haven't mentioned the glory track yet. Basically, it's an end game point modifier. There are certain of the knowledge tokens that have these little laurel wreaths, and you're going to multiply those laurel wreaths times your glory level to get a bonus to your end game scoring. So at the end of the game, after these 9 rounds, you're going to add up the points you've accumulated throughout the game. You're going to add up the points you've gotten from any of your endgame scoring politics cards, any points you've gotten from your city-state development, and then any of the laurel wreaths that you've collected that are multiplied by your glory track. Woo,
yeah,
that's
it.
You
did it. You did it.
I did it. I sure did, Alex. Yeah, so my understanding, Alex, is that your first exposure to this game was through my Extra Life tweet.
Yeah, so expectations. I'll give you 2 sides of a coin here, Sean. The very first, before I played this game at all, was seeing your Extra Life tweet that said this was one of the best new games you had played in a long time. And that got my attention. Oh, okay. Especially given that this didn't look like some crazy, complex, over-the-top GMT game, but something more in the realm of possibility that I might also enjoy.
Sure.
I then also posted the On Deck thread prior to getting my first plays of this. And we'll talk about what the guild thoughts were on this.
Yeah.
But the guild thoughts were, hey, this game's pretty mediocre. A lot of promise and pretty mediocre. And so I was like, which one of these am I going to fall into? I'm not sure. But those were the expectations going in. Sean had incredibly high praise. The guild was meh. And what does that mean?
Yeah.
What about you?
Yeah, I knew very little about this game, and I think I told the story when we reviewed The Loop with, was that Suze? Was it Suze or Aaron? Oh my
Suze,
goodness.
I
It was
think.
Suze. I'm going to edit that out because one of them or both of them will be mad at me. So it was an Extra Life, and basically we were splitting up into two groups. One group's going to go play The Loop. The other group is going to go play Khora. Khora looked like the super dry, boring spreadsheet game, and I was all in for that. Totally all in for that. And so, yeah, I'm like, this looks interesting. Iello, that's weird. Oh, it's this expert classification. I mean, I knew that it wasn't going to be, an 18xx game, expert, quote unquote. But I'm like, oh yeah, it'll probably be, I mean, it looked interesting. But that was it. I knew very little about the game going into it. So.
Okay. Rulebook, Sean. Did you learn this thing from the rulebook, or did you learn it otherwise?
No, I learned this from Eugene. Eugene taught the game that night at Extra Life. I have since gone through the rulebook. I did wind up buying a copy of this pretty much that night. And I had to reteach Raquel the game because when Raquel played, she was pretty much a zombie. She was exhausted, and she was pretty her score was abysmal because she was just kind of going through the motions, and she virtually remembered nothing about the game when we played another time, which was my 2-player game was with Raquel. But I've since gone through the rule book, and I think it's a pretty solid rule book. What about you? How'd you learn?
I learned this from Rodney Smith from Watch It Played.
Oh, okay.
Watched a Watch It Played video with my brother, and that's how we learned how to play, with some support from the rulebook, but almost entirely through a video. I will add, though, Sean, that I think this game does a tremendous job of reinforcing its rules on its components.
Yes.
Iconography tends to be quite crisp and clear, and
Absolutely.
on the main player board, there's a turn structure that lays out very clearly, here's what you do, and you do it here, and you do it at this point. There's icons that show when you hit this point on the track, you add this benefit. Everything has its place. We'll talk about this in components in more detail, but it made the game's mechanics and what was going on with it much easier to take in, much easier to remember, because all of the rules are laid out in a pretty clean way for the most part.
Yeah, I didn't feel like there was really any reference to the rule book once we were up and running in any of the games I played of it.
I couldn't remember the card, but there was a question about a someone's ability, a faction ability, and whether someone had my brother had a discount that's stacked with a politics card discount. But the question was, if he got an advancement from an event, did he also get the discount that was on his board from this or not? And that wasn't really cleaned up anywhere in the rulebook. I think the way we played it was probably fine, but there were little bits and pieces that we couldn't find in there. But broadly speaking, it's a cleanly laid out game and a clean game to learn. Despite your lengthy explanation, it's actually not that. It really isn't that difficult of a game to grok.
Well, and I think it's because just how you put it, right? It's all laid out so well that in this sort of audio only medium, it requires a lot more explanation. But I think there's a lot of intuitive features of this game that you're just going to sit there. Someone's teaching the game. You're like, oh yeah, got it. Okay, cool.
Yes.
Next, move on. We got this.
Yep.
So yeah, I think that's pretty solid. So as far as the components, we kind of already talked about how I think we both are in agreement that iconography is really solid. I don't think there's anything about this game that's a big wow. Probably the biggest wow is,
I disagree.
Okay, cool, great.
The multi-layered player boards.
That's what I was going to say. That
okay.
Other than that, which I think 5 years ago would have been a bigger wow. Now, but go on.
Well, but here's the thing. Where I most associate multi-layered player boards is with Scythe.
Right.
And how it was a wow at that time. And even Stonemaier has drifted away from it. And I think this has been explained on the blog. I think it has something to do with component replacement costs and things like that. That's fine. Do what you need to do. But if I have my choice between like the sandpapery kind of thing, the grip components, and the satisfying, this all slots into place and locks into place, and this shape fits perfectly, and there's a track, and it's locked in, and it's hard to move, I'll take that multi-layered player board any day of the week. And I want to give praise for that specifically, because it makes such a difference to my enjoyment of a game.
Well, anytime you're slightly bumping your player board and not just screwing up your entire game. Yeah, no, that's fantastic. And when I say there's not a big wow, I should mention that it's very solid iconography. I think the art is really good. It's not, but I just feel like there's not a lot of table presence there because it's a bunch of tracks.
Yeah, it's a bunch of tracks and some cards,
and then a bunch of these red, blue, and green tokens on the other side of the player board. I mean, literally, or not the player board, the main board. I mean, literally, the main board is this big rectangular score track, and then it's got a bunch of tracks on the left, and then on the right, it's got the different regions that you're invading with a bunch of the player tokens. That's it. It's not a wow if you're going to walk by it. Like, I think for most people, they would walk by this at convention and be like, oh, all right, whatever.
Look, there's some good art. The art is solid. I'm not bugged by it at all. I think for this style of art, it works really well for the game. It pops. It's colorful. It's decent enough. It's not a wow presentation, but I do love, again, how the factions slot in perfectly, how the tokens are that perfect size to fit in where they go. You know where everything belongs. It does a great job. There's nothing that's unclear about this game, and I think from a production standpoint, solid to great. Like it's in that range of
okay.
It helps the game more than it hurts it. I have genuinely no issues with the production.
Okay, cool. So let's talk about gameplay. And I think the very first thing that we have to talk about is the dice rolling, right? You have 2 actions, possibly 3. So, and there are 9 rounds, right? So you have a minimum of 18 actions throughout the game. Maybe as much as, I don't know, 24, 25, depending on how quickly you're able to unlock that third die, which basically means you need to, your culture track, I think you need to get to level 3 or level 4 in order to unlock that third die. And yes, there's the mitigation of the citizens. So if I roll, on my first turn, if I roll 1-1, I start off with 3 citizens. So in theory, I can play around with that a bit. But then if I roll 1-1 the next turn, and then 1-2 the next turn, and then so on and so forth, that cannot feel good. That cannot feel so great, Alex.
Half of your action that round might be getting the mitigation needed to maybe avoid that in the future. Maybe. Here's the thing with this, and it kills me because there are some other pieces of this game that are decent and enjoyable and make some amount of sense to me. But it's the dice rolling piece of this feels arbitrary.
Mm-hmm.
It can feel punishing or completely unnecessary and uninteresting.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where for legitimately no reason, I might roll 2 1s and you might roll 2 6s. And that means you get access to significantly more powerful actions than I did.
Mm-hmm.
Possibly for rounds and rounds and rounds with nothing counterbalancing it other than luck. I like luck in games where fitting. This is not the kind of game that this makes a lot of sense in. And my brain has kind of been racking to try and figure out what would the version of this be, right? Is there a version of this where you roll communal dice and you all are stuck with the actions tied to that dice, so it's even? It might be punishing, but it's evenly punishing.
Sure.
You do something where you draft in turn order or snake-style draft of dice, and you do something that way. I don't know, but what they've done here doesn't work. And it's core to the game in a way that, again, is either unnecessary or sucks. Like there's not a positive piece to the dice in this game.
Yeah. And as much as I love this game, as much as I have enjoyed all my plays, as much as I'm sure I'm going to get more plays of this in before the double take, it is absolutely a fatal flaw. And I love it. I love it despite that fatal flaw. But looking at the mediocrity that was felt on the guild, I'm like, I totally get it. And there are some people I would not play this game with because they would be upset by it And you know what? Probably rightly so. No, not even probably, like kind of rightly so. This is unfortunate. And certainly I feel like I spent most of my games talking about what can be done to make this better. And almost everything we came up with still just tended to reward higher dice rolls. It's interesting because like in a game like Castles of Burgundy, where you're rolling dice and rolling those dice greatly affects what you're able to do. The difference is in Castles of Burgundy, a 6 is not inherently better than a 1.
No, it's just different, right? It might not be good for your game, but there are also mitigation measures built into that game. But you're right, a 1 versus a 6 doesn't inherently benefit me necessarily. It might be unluckily timed, but if you've set up your game well, it's not a problem. It makes perfect sense in that game.
And looking at Lorenzo excuse me. So I always have a problem. Dang it. Lorenzo Il Magnifico. Have you played this? I don't think so.
I don't think so.
It is another one of our favorite midweight Euros. It has a dice rolling thing where it's a shared dice pool, right? So it's same thing. It negatively affects everyone. And on one hand, they make the litigation action. Litigation's the number one action. So you're always able to do it. They make it so that automatically gives you 3 citizens. And very often it's worthwhile to go digging for 2 cards and keep one of them. That's worthwhile. And I think there is some value in the first turn, 2, 3 turns, and some of them of taking a litigation action so that you've got a pool of citizens, so that you've got some more selection of politics cards to choose from. There's also other ways to get citizens throughout the game through playing politics cards, whether it's instantaneous effects or ongoing effects, whatever. But that doesn't change the fact that in turns 7, 8, and 9, if you roll really badly and you've gone through all of your citizens, whoops, what can you do?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly right.
Yeah. So it is interesting because this is, I called it before a fatal flaw, and it is very much a fatal flaw. But it's not going to affect my score for whatever reason.
It's insane to me. I don't know how it couldn't.
I get it. I totally get it.
And that's not the only issue I have with the game, to be clear.
Okay.
So let's talk about another one. So I don't think this thing scales well.
I agree 100%.
And here's your okay. Here's your COVID caveat with this.
Yeah.
I only played this at 2. And I have a feeling it would be a little better at 3 and 4. I don't think it would fundamentally change my stance on the game, but I think it would be better on some of the issues I'm about to describe.
Yeah.
But I'll give you an example. My brother was playing for the second game of this. I can't remember which one, but I was playing Sparta. I was all military. He was whichever faction allows you to move up the tracks super fast.
Yeah.
He played really well. I mean, maybe he could have tried to compete with me a little more in military, but the truth is, in a 2-player game of this, I got free reign. They don't scale the number of tokens available. They don't scale anything. Anything in this game. Nothing is scaled. And so as a result, as Sparta, I just have free reign. I grab a bunch of major tokens. I don't lose as many troops as he does. I build up my military. He was rolling 3 dice for most of that game, and I was rolling 2, and I still creamed him.
Mm-hmm.
And not because I played some extravagant stroke of genius. The game played itself. I didn't feel like I made some sort of interesting set of really cool decisions. In fact, early on, my game got stymied. He stole an ability to play an extra politics action from me by boosting his military unexpectedly early on in the game, and it meant I wasn't able to play a card that was going to boost my tax level. And so I got stymied there and wasted some actions, and I still creamed him. And it's not because he played badly. He played really well, I thought, for what that faction could do.
Mm-hmm.
But they're not balanced, and the game isn't well scaled. There has to be some way of making this. There had to be something to do at 2 players to have this make more sense. I don't know.
Yeah, and I played it all player counts. I played it 2, 3, and 4, and I will say that 4 is ideal. And I didn't have any problems playing it at 4. I thought it was just fine at 4 because there's a lot of simultaneous play. But the military side is much tighter, and there's much more competition. And in a sense, then there are times when you want to roll low enough,
Yes.
right? High enough to do what you need to do, and maybe you've built up a stockpile of citizens. And by the way, there's an incentive to get a bunch of citizens because it's one of the
Achievements.
it's one of the achievements, and it can be an easy achievement unless you need to, get into your citizen stash early on, which definitely may happen.
Well, Sean, let me interrupt and add this, by the
Sure.
way, for this other game I'm describing. Thank you for the reminder on achievements. He got 4 of the 5
Yeah.
and still got his butt kicked. I don't know.
Where were so I should mention that you're going to get points through military, some combination of where you're pulling the knowledge tokens from. Certain spots will give you points just outright. Other times, some of the tokens have those laurel wreaths, and then you've gotten some amount of glory bumps that are a multiplier. Was it just an aggregate of that?
I mean, that was where a big chunk, I think I had like 60 points or more in military at the end. Something that was enough to well push me over the top.
It very well may be that this game is much better balanced at 4 than it is at 2 or even 3. Even at 3, there didn't seem to be as much competition for the military knowledge tokens. At 4, it was a knife fight. And it felt really good.
Yeah.
That's another problem. That's certainly another problem. And that's certainly something that I am very curious how I view this game at the double take, because so I had games where I never rolled consistently poorly. That's nice. That helps. I'm not saying I rolled great, but I would have turns I'm like, that's unfortunate. Or well, I guess I'm going to kind of need to take a litigation action, or legislation action. Shows where my mind is. And I'd rather not do that. I much rather would have done this 5 and the 6 this turn, but instead I'm going to have to do this 1 and the 6. Okay. And I'm okay with that here and there. I think it was Nick's first play of it where he had some pretty bad die rolls pretty consistently. And it wasn't so bad that it was upsetting and off-putting to him, but I could see where if it's slightly worse, or even if you're just someone other than Nick, it could be completely off-putting. And certainly it's something that everybody mentioned, because there would always be at least one turn, maybe more, where you're just like, what the hell am I supposed to do with these dice? Really? So I get it. And it's a problem. And I feel like as long as you're rolling decent-ish, it's mostly okay. But there's no way to guarantee that. Unless there's a house rule or some errata or something.
Yes. Yeah. And I might recommend a house rule where you just have communal dice. Everyone does well or poorly. And you pass a first player marker around.
Sure. And is there a downside to that? I don't think there is. Yeah. I don't think there is.
It immediately makes the game fairer.
And then maybe there's a different colored third die that once you've unlocked that, you get access to that die.
Roll all 3 as you
2.
like. Okay.
Well, yeah.
No, roll all 3, and then whenever you get access to the third one. Well, I don't know. You're right. It would have to be different colored to be the additional one that's unlocked.
I think so. I think so. But,
that's fair.
But here's the thing. Most of the time, whenever you unless you've played a game 15, 20 times, probably should stay out of the realm of coming up with house rules, right? You just haven't had enough experience. I don't know that's the case here. I mean, it's the one thing that was the go-to for everybody that played it. I mean, and here's the question. Would I be having a different a different outlook on this game if I had had any one game where I rolled super poorly.
Yes.
Maybe.
But I here's the thing, Sean. I had some turns where I rolled poorly. I rolled okay or had enough, and there was some puzzling out to make sure I had enough, and just barely sometimes, and some of that was engaging as a puzzle. But it didn't have to happen to me to see that this is not well designed on that front. I don't know.
I get it.
And look, I can see part of why you would like this. It's got a lot of boring tracks. That's right up Sean's alley.
Love it.
There's some good combos, and there's some opportunities to feel really, look, I've had a huge turn. I did this, and I got this token, which let me upgrade here, and then that bumped my troop level, which allowed me to steal this action from you, which allowed me to... I get that, and there's some of that there when you combine it with the card play that makes for, or can make for, an interesting game. The factions are well differentiated and play in different ways, but when you combine the scalability, the lack of interactivity at 2 players, and perhaps 3, and the dice at the core of it, it's just not good enough. It's just not good enough. And I also was trying to think of who is this game for, in a sense. Who's the audience? Is it, I'm relatively new into this type of game? Is it true experts? Is it, I don't know. It's not crazy complex. And there are some divergent strategies and ways you can combine cards and find endgame points, and there's some cool decisions you might make in this game, but not the level of decision you might make in, say, a Matai in terms of cool decisions, or even a Castles of Burgundy, honestly. So, I don't know. It just kind of fell flat. I'm far more with the Guild than I am with one of the best new games I've played in a while. That, in retrospect, is it's baffling. And so now, here's the space, Sean. Why was this one of the best new games you've played in a while?
For all of the reasons that you mentioned. For whatever reason, I am able to compartmentalize the very significant issues. Here's the thing. I'm fully aware of this, right? Like, I'm not gonna die in this hill and be like, oh, this game it's brilliant and it's flawless. No, it's flawed. Like, it's a very flawed game. But there is for all of those things you mentioned, where it's all the stupid tracks, it's the asymmetric play, it's choosing the right actions in the right order, even though that's limited by those dice rolls. I do not disagree with any of your critiques in any way, shape, or form. There is just something about the game that I enjoyed well enough. Not even well enough. There's something in this game that I just enjoyed tremendously. And I think it's going to be one of those games that's going to be impacted by reactions from other players in future plays, right? I don't want to play a game that's miserable for someone else. And this certainly has the potential to do that.
Sean, my challenge for you is the house rule. To play the exact house rule I suggested next time you get a chance.
I think that's well worth a shot. Is there any potential downside to that? I don't see it. I certainly don't see it.
It makes for there's no fundamental unfairness. Much like the event deck, some events are good, some events are bad. I can live with that as long as it's affecting everyone at the table. If there's a scenario, not an unrealistic scenario, where you roll a 12, even 2 turns in a row, and I roll a 2 turns in a row, that's a big disparity in what we're able to do. And there's nothing in the game compensating for that other than that first event that's baked in.
So the only time you don't want to roll high, I mean, really and truly, there are some minor times when everyone's going to be playing military and there are strictly better knowledge token options because of the points that they're going to award or whatever. We didn't mention that there is sort of a boss battle, and that's Persepolis.
Yep.
Persepolis, you need 15 military, and then I think you sacrifice 15 troops. And you immediately, or once you do that, you get a token of each color. All 3 of them have laurel wreaths. Also, by sacking Persepolis, you allow a final action of the game for everyone else, including yourself, that's non-military. And certainly, there's going to be a time in the last round or two when multiple people are capable of sacking Persepolis. And if I roll 665 and you roll 154, whatever, you're going to get to go first. And that's a bummer. And that's a pretty big differential. That's a pretty big swing. And if there was always some sort of upside to rolling lower, okay. But it's only an upside in 4% of the game. And that's not enough. That's not enough to offset just how almost strictly better it is to always roll high.
Now, here I have in thinking of the Persepolis problem, Sean.
Sure.
There is one consideration.
It sounds like a philosophical
the Persepolis problem.
Thought problem.
The immediate thing that comes to mind is it's now the first player marker kind of rotates around, and so it's a little bit arbitrary who might have that action at that time. Perhaps you could make one of the other actions, the lower powered actions, you gain the first player marker. Although, I mean, again, with the same dice out there, that could get pretty wild. But
legislation. I think legislation gives it to you because by having a shared pool, I think it inherently makes citizens slightly less important.
Yes. I don't know. There's something there, but even with that caveat that perhaps late game, turn order being randomly determined and someone just getting Persepolis because of that may not be great. I think I'd rather try and work with that problem than try and deal with the complete unfairness baked into the game.
100%. I get that. Yeah, I agree.
Right.
I agree.
Okay. Well, theme. Sure.
So the Sparta city-state cares about military?
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Nailed it.
Athena cares about knowledge and cards you played. And yeah, I mean, look, it doesn't feel like it's disconnected from its theme. I'm not excited by it. It's not a unique or interesting or exciting theme for me. But it doesn't do its theme a disservice. The art supports it. It plays fine, I guess. I don't know. I'm not excited by it, but I don't think it's anything that's negative with the game.
Moving on, Alex, tell us about some of this guild mediocrity.
So yeah, this is what I read before my first play from Sylvain Lacroix. I have to admit that I was pretty interested by that game. A nice midweight Euro playable in 75 minutes with a lot of different treks to manage. That's in my wheelhouse. The first few games were enjoyable, but after 5 to 6 games, my appreciation changed. First of all, it's pretty light, something that doesn't bother me much, but the label, Iello Expert, is a bit of a stretch. My main problem is that the game is a lot less enjoyable with fewer than 4 players. My 2-player games had almost no tension. Since all the tokens on the exploration area are available, it didn't create the rush to go somewhere before someone else could take that token. Also, the game can be devastating with bad dice rolls. Yes, you can mitigate with citizens, but there's a few games that a player was really left behind. On the plus side, production is great, and the player board has all the info you need to play the game. Game company should take this as an example of how to do a player board and game aid, because they did an amazing job. Sadly, though, I was disappointed after my early hype, and I sold it to a friend that really enjoyed this game. I'll still give it an honest 3.
Yeah, so I feel like the easy solution, at least for the scaling, is you just have an overlay for different number of players for the military. Like, that's it.
Yes. Yeah.
Like because I think what you can't do is you can't say, only place out the first half of the blue, red, and green. I think there are certain ones that need to come out, and it's probably easier with an overlay. But
yeah, it's almost like someone should design something, and have that in the design and print it on the board that would indicate which tokens go with different player counts. It's odd. It's strange how that's going. I don't know.
Well, the technology just isn't there for that yet, Alex.
Yeah, no, they could print everything else, but not that information.
And then Brett Maurer says, I tried this one with 3 players and was very excited going in. Alex, where's this going to go from here? Who doesn't love tech trees and wooden bits? Ultimately, I left disappointed as my horrendous dice rolls really hurt my chances of staying competitive. I'll echo what Sylvain mentioned in that I got left behind due to not rolling above a 3 on many turns. Having citizens does help, but not when you have to spend them over and over while your opponents have more choice and don't have to waste citizens. I'd play it again for sure, but it left a bad taste in my mouth. A low 3 for my initial play. So here's what's interesting, Alex. And by the way, I should mention, we rate everything here at the Dukes of Dice on a 6-point scale. When they say it's a 3, they're describing a game that is okay, not exciting, will play in the right situation. I should mention a 2 is a game that has some merit, but has significant issues. And here's what I'm worried, Alex. I think it's assured that you're going to give this a 2, at most a 2. My question is, are you going to give this a 1? Poorly designed, but playable, not necessarily fun. Are we about to have the biggest score disparity in Dukes of Dice history? That's the question.
Are you giving this thing a 6?
No, I'm not giving this a 6.
Okay, I didn't think so. Even a 5, by the way, even a 5 is too generous for this game, even
Sure.
Based on your own review just now.
Yeah, 100%.
But great. I mean, look, it's subjective scoring. I get how it goes. I don't know. You want to go first and leave mine for a little more suspense?
Yeah, I'm going to give it a 5.
Oh, I don't understand.
I get it. I 100% get it. 5 is a great game. It's not. We'll rarely turn down a play of it. I wouldn't. I get it. And here's what I would say. Don't buy this game. Right?
What?
I mean,
wait, what?
Don't buy it. The chances are this game is going to leave more people than not a little soured. Don't buy this game. Don't get it. Possibly don't even play it.
This is the strangest review ever.
I enjoyed it, Alex. I enjoyed it.
But I feel like you maybe 4 enjoyed it, like not 5.
I could go play this game right now and have a blast.
Oh my goodness.
I would love to go play this game right now. So it's kind of like, you weren't here when Dune came out, Alex, but there's the 1984 Dune had a lot of rough edges. It had a lot of character, had a lot of weird stuff. Dune, the new 2021 Denis Villeneuve, whatever, movie is strictly a better movie in so many ways, but it's a lot less fun. Dune 84 is more fun. And so I understand that. And I guess that's what I'm talking about here, right? Like, I get it. I get the frustration with this game. And I can freely admit that it has significant issues. I cannot separate how much I enjoyed playing this game despite that. And it could turn out that I could say, I'll play the next game and roll not higher than a 3 for most of the game, be a little annoyed. And then it happened again. But again, like I said before, I could even play this with someone and they just be miserable the whole time. I don't want to do that. Like, that's not enjoyable for me. Maybe this house rule might be helpful, but I can't escape the fact that I have really enjoyed this game, despite knowing that it has significant flaws. I get it. And so I can't give this a recommendation, but I still enjoy it.
I'm just imagining the quote later. Don't buy this game. Maybe don't even play it. 5 out of 6.
Yeah.
Oh,
it's weird. I get it. I totally get it.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. I didn't even mention that I think this game has more setup, has kind of a fiddly setup. It's neither here nor there. Not worth it. Sean, I came into this review thinking I was going to give this thing a 3. Genuinely,
no way.
I had a 3 in my head. But as I'm talking this out and feeling really upset with this game, for my experience and what I genuinely think the game deserves, I think it's a 2. Game has some merit, but has significant issues. And Sylvain pointed this out quite well. From a production standpoint and from a reinforcing your rules standpoint, components even, this game is very successful. Iello did a phenomenal job producing this game, but the gameplay itself has significant issues, genuine significant issues, even ones that I guess defenders would admit. Some baffling design decisions for me in this game, and ultimately not fun enough to justify itself. It's a 2. I probably will not want to play this again, and I probably will not have played this again. I will say, for what it's worth, a high 2, I guess. I had some amount of fun with it, but there's enough stuff that just breaks it for me. It doesn't get to a 1. The disdain's not quite high enough. But I think a 2. I almost should give it a 1 to offset your insane score. But I will not. 2 out of 6 from me.
What if you can spend the citizen either to increase a pip or to just re-roll the die altogether?
Sure. It's just some mitigation there, I guess, but I don't know. I think community dice still works better for me.
So in other words, I roll a 4, I really need to roll a 5. So I spend a die to get it from 4 to a 5. Or I rolled a 1. I need at least a 3. I've got pretty good odds if I just spend a citizen to just re-roll altogether. I'm 1 in 6 to get the same, 1 in 6 to do 1 better. I am then 2 and 3 to do anything better than just going up a pip.
Sean, guess what? Guess where none of what we're talking about is. Guess where none of that is?
In the rule book.
In the rules of this game.
I get it. I know.
It's not good, dude.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for the Duke's review of Khora, Rise of an Empire. A 6 from Alex and a 5 from Sean. Moving on. I've got final control of the edit.
You are listening to the Dukes of Dice, proud members of the Dice Tower Network. For other great shows in the network, check out Dicetowernetwork.com. Back to Alex and Sean for this week's Dukes Double Take.
All right, next up in the Dukes Double Take, episode 239, Cyberhood, which was not named by anyone on the guild, but was named before we knew of this monster's existence by Sean Connery. We think Sean coming up with a name because this was a super secret surprise episode because we had early access to Unmatched Little Red Riding Hood versus Beowulf. And by we, I mean Sean. So, Sean?
Yes?
What did you say about this at the time?
Or Shong. By the way, this Cyberhood episode was just us completely shilling for Restoration Games.
Oh, 100%.
Because you then had a holding court episode or interview with Justin Jacobson from from Restoration. Yeah, so this is part of the Unmatched series of games, which we both enjoy quite a bit. Both, I think, high 5s from both of us. Is that right, Alex? I think
I wouldn't say high 5. I'd say in the 5 range. By the way, okay. a side note on this before you dive in. Yeah. I first played the Unmatched series, the first set of this, at Gamma back when I was still in the board game industry.
Right.
Justin showed it to me, and he played it. He's like, hey, this is going to be our next big thing. We're going to have a ton of sets and a ton of characters. People are going to love this. And I played it at the time, and I was like, it's good. But I didn't see it. And obviously could not have been more wrong. I think it's as good of evidence as anything as to why I'm no longer working professionally in the industry, not knowing that this thing would be as amazing as it has been in terms of the sheer number of sets, characters,
sure.
The love for the game, the love for the series. This has been one of the other games that Restoration has made its bread on, and for good reason. Congratulations. I don't have the vision. Don't trust me with anything. That's sort of the moral of this. It wasn't that I thought it was bad. It was just that I was like, okay.
Especially don't trust you with your Khora review. So
what? You don't even trust yourself with the Khora review.
I conceded to every point you made, basically. So you know.
Yes.
So yeah, I love the Unmatched system. And by the way, we reviewed Cobble and Fog, and you and I did, and then I think Mariah and I reviewed the Buffy one as well. So is this the most reviewed game / system on the Dukes of Dice?
Yeah, it's bizarre, but yes.
Maybe we need to kind of separate a bit from Sue's. This is making me feel a little squeamish right now.
Claustrophobic.
Oof.
It's the second most mentioned game title behind Baseball Highlights 2045 first mention.
Magic?
No, I think Baseball Highlights would take the cake.
No, I'm saying after Baseball Highlights, then Magic.
Oh, then Magic, then this? Oh, okay. Yeah, I can see that.
Come on.
Yeah, okay.
All right.
Maybe Motainai, though? Is it this or Motainai?
It's probably Motainai, but Magic is quickly approaching, I think. So anyway, this was Little Red Riding Hood versus Beowulf. And which is a weird set. Like, you get it. It's like kind of a, playful matchup, playful pair up. But it's a little odd in one sense, but what it does is, I think at the time, it introduced some of the more complex mechanics to Unmatched. And by the way, Unmatched is this 2 to 4 player dueling game where you have it's a skirmish game where you have a hero on the board, sometimes with some additional helpers, that's moving around on the board. You're playing cards from your hand. It's kind of an opposed combat system where I say, I'm striking you either through a melee or through a ranged combat. You put down a defense card, we flip them. There's a number comparison, but then there's also some special effects. I love it. I think this game is fantastic. As a system, I think it's fantastic. I liked this set quite a bit because like I said, it introduced these more complex mechanics. There's this rage component to Beowulf where you are able to accumulate and then spend rage to make your cards more powerful. Red, she had this basket mechanic where all of the cards had a sort of suit, and depending on your discard pile, one of the cards is considered in your basket, and based on what suit is in your basket, it can wind up powering up other cards that you're playing. Super cool. I think this was a fantastic set. Ultimately, I gave this a high 5, and it's still kind of a high 5 for the system. What I got into at the end of my review, and by the way, this was a solo review, which was really weird to listen to. But as I kind of got into the end of my review, I was like, so it's really a question of, where do you start? For most people, do I think you should start at Little Red Riding Hood versus Beowulf? And the answer is probably no. The Cobble and Fog is a great great entry point because it lets you play up to 4 players, although most of the time you're going to be playing with 2, at least to start, possibly. And it's all of these literary horror characters. It's the Invisible Man, Jekyll and Hyde, Dracula, and then also Sherlock Holmes. So I guess not a horror character technically. And it's a great place to start. I said, if you like Buffy, start with Buffy because Buffy's awesome. Buffy is still hands down my favorite. Raquel's favorite is the Raptors versus InGen because she loves Jurassic Park. So I think it really is a matter of what do you gravitate towards? Are you a collector and completionist? If you're a completionist, you should totally pick this up. Like, I really think both decks are really cool. It's not necessarily where I would start with. So I think I said of the sets that I have owned, of the 4 sets I owned, it's my 3rd favorite, but that's not a bad thing because they're all good and fun. So.
Okay. Plenty of thoughts on the guild. More about Unmatched as a whole. Normally this would be a good spot for guild thoughts, but man, Sean, it feels like the shill train is too far out of the station at this point. Do we just let's see? Do we have any? And I'm just looking for more specific ones just on Little Red and Wolf. Okay.
Well, listen. At the end of the day, it's a fantastic system. It's a fantastic light skirmish system. They hit it out of the park. We have not shied away from heaping criticism on games that were review copies or we had some sort of connection. If this were just meh, I'd be like, eh. But it's not. It's a solid system.
It's really good. I'll say on this set specifically, Adam Dalton said the characters don't really stand out for him. For BJ, he said Little Red and the Wolf are always in the mix. So, I don't know. Guild's kind of split on this specific set, but generally the guild likes Unmatched. So, there you go.
All right. Everyone off the shill train.
Off the shill train and on to the honorable mentions train. The names we didn't pick, but might have in another alternate universe that isn't this one. First up, the name Father Steve O'Rourke with Drachma, what big teeth you have. Referencing Little Red Riding Hood and the drachma in Khora.
Yeah, and drachma kind of like grandma.
Yes, pretty good.
And then Phil Speck throwing in a one-name entry, perfected, I should say, by Sean Connery. He suggested Lycaon, which was a Greek person.
It's a Greek ruler that was turned into a wolf by Zeus. It was a really clever one-word name.
Yeah, because you got the Little Red Riding Hood, you got the Greek connection there. And I'm assuming, I'd never heard of this particular Greek character, but I'm assuming that's where lycanthrope came from.
It could be. That makes sense.
So, yeah. Very nice.
Next up, the most popular one on the guild, but not the one we picked. Kyle Kelly, a wolf in Greek's clothing. So Beowulf, wolf, and then wolf in sheep's clothing. What was that? Oh, what's the connection there? I'm confused. I confused myself as I was saying it.
That's just the saying, a wolf in sheep's
in Greek's clothing. Okay, never mind. Okay. My brain got lack of sleep. My brain got tangled up. It's been an episode. It's been emotional reunion, Sean. So.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
And then Adam Dalton suggested heir of Alex. Obviously, I don't get the reference, but you know,
it's on the guild.
No, I'm kidding. Yeah, thanks. So Ruby is an heir of Alex.
Yes. Rubies are red like the cloak worn by Red Riding Hood, and empires also tended to rise on the heirs of their leaders, is the explanation from Adam.
Okay. All right, good. Well, I'm glad you had that ready.
Yeah. No, I've learned my lesson. I have to have this guild thread ready to go, or else we won't have a clean explanation for some of these, because we'll have forgotten why they were clever. Yeah. And then finally, Brett Mowers with Daddies of Dice. And I don't think this really was tied into anything other than now there are two daddies on this podcast.
Well, and I will say we'll save that title for one of our After Dark episodes that we'll be releasing soon.
Quick, what's a board game related P word? Word that begins with P.
A what that begins with P?
A board game related word that begins with P. Points, I guess.
Yeah, okay.
But it's not perfect. So the Papas of Points.
Papas of Points?
The Papas of Points.
Oh, I see what you're doing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not great.
No.
Not great at all.
The Papas of Pips, the Pippin Papas.
Yeah, maybe Pips to stick with the dice.
Yeah? All right.
The Pip Papas.
The
Papas of Pips.
Pip Papas of Pips.
Nope, we're done.
Okay.
All right. Well, Alex, welcome back.
Thanks.
For now.
Thanks. What?
That's going to do it for episode 264. Thanks again to BJ for that name title. Ruby Rising.
I'm very tired.
Until next time, this is Sean.
And Alex.
And Dukulator, all you daddies out there.
Thank you so much for listening to the Daddies of Dice. Today's episode was recorded in the Daddy on December 3rd, 2021. Our theme music provided by Carbohydro M from his Prime Legacy album. The Daddies of Dice are a proud member of the Daddy Tower Network. For other great board gaming podcasts, check out DicetowerNetwork.com. I mean, DaddyTowerNetwork.com. And for
Keep going, I'm not changing a thing.
Nope, and for all of the links to the Dutchie, go to daddiesofdice.com. Find us on Twitter at Daddies of Dice. Join in conversations.
Do I have to register that domain name now?
Find us on Facebook and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thanks to our sponsor, Game Toppers LLC. Game Toppers, if it's not a showstopper, it's not a game topper. Now Ruby approved. We'll see you back here in 2 weeks. Until then, Daddy on.
For the record, don't look up Daddies of Dice on Google.